Hey, happy Tuesday, besties and bosses. How's everyone's week going? How was your weekend? I'm on my little spinny chair. Been on calls all day today and it's been like rolling me around. So let's see if we can stay facing forward. How's everyone's Valentine's Day? Do you celebrate Valentine's Day? Actually, before we dive into today's topic, I have a kind of funny story that's worth sharing because it's top of mind. I think some of you know I have a bonus son, a stepson, who I call him my bonus son because for a long time I've been with my now husband for almost 8 years, but for a lot of that time we weren't married, so I called him my bonus son instead of stepson. And he has two younger siblings through his bonus dad. And his youngest sibling, Chloe, we're a blended family. We all get along. We literally have Thanksgiving dinner with my husband's ex, and we all, I don't know, we share a hairdresser, and I love her and I text her, and I've accidentally texted her when I mean to text my husband. So it's all very, very blended and we all get along well. And so my stepson, my bonus son, has a 2-year-old sister who's not my stepsister, if everyone's following here. And it's Valentine's Day yesterday and she's in daycare, and they ask everyone in the daycare, who do you love? And they're all 2 years old. And so there's this board where I guess the teacher daycare is writing down the names next to this. And Chloe's mom, my husband's ex-wife, sends us this photo, and it's all of the kids' names and who they love. And it's all mommy or mommy and daddy or mommy and daddy and their sibling's name. And then Chloe, who is, again, my stepson's little sister, just writes a cat. So it's who do you love? Everyone's mommy, daddy, and she just writes a cat. And it's not the cat, it's not, by the way, they don't have a cat. They don't even have pets. She has not met Nala, my cat. So everyone else is saying that they love their mom and their dad, and she's just saying that who she loves on Valentine's Day is a cat. I will have to find the photo and see if I'm allowed to share it in the group. I was dying laughing, so that was my Valentine's Day experience. It was kind of it just felt too hysterical because I think 2-year-old brains and their thought process, sometimes they just say the funniest thing. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about today, but I want to know how everyone's Valentine's was and how your week is off to a start. And I think it's just funny to get to think about some of the funny things that kids think about as well. Today, what we are going to talk about is money. We're going to talk about what I'm calling the dark side of money, and a really important conversation. This is actually a conversation I've been wanting to have for a few weeks, but we had kind of other content planned, as well as celebrating my lowest income month of 2021. And yes, I actually am celebrating that. And I want to dive into what I mean by the dark side of money. I want to have that conversation with you, as well as why I'm celebrating the lowest income months, and just normalize some things in our space that I think aren't talked about all the time. And I think for a good reason. I think honestly, for a lot of people's businesses and marketing, they can't talk about some of these things, which is part of the trap of making money in our space. I think I'm in a position where, because I only focus on one-on-one and we've been fully booked, and we're not necessarily always launching things, I have a little bit more freedom around some of the things we can share in our content. So it feels really good for me to get to have this conversation with all of you. So we're gonna dive into all of that. As you're here, if you're watching now or on the replay, if you have questions, if you have something come up around that, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I think this particularly is something I really want to encourage all of us to feel like we have space to talk about. Hi, Star, nice to have you here. And she says, love this topic, thank you. You mean this topic, not the topic about the Valentine's Day cat, I think. I'm laughing at myself. But if anyone has questions, reflections, anything, I really want to normalize the conversation. And I also want to make it okay for everyone to have this conversation. So if you feel like you want to talk about this, you can use the Facebook group, you can chime in here. I also super respect if this is something where, it feels like you don't want to talk about that. That's of course okay. Feel free to DM me, message me, send me an email for something that comes up. But I do want to create as much as we can in a public group. It's a private public group, but in a space just to have more of these conversations. So a lot of stuff I want to share. I've been trying to think of what's the best way to share this. I think with a preface and what I'll just give some context around this. What it feels very, very important for this conversation for me to say and to speak to is I do not want this conversation to come across like it is bad to talk about money. It is bad to want money. It's bad to want to make money or more money in business. That is not what this conversation is at all. I think money is quite honestly a very neutral resource. It is an energy exchange, right? We put energy out into the world as business owners. Energy comes back to us in different ways and forms. One of those energies that we can receive back happens to be money. I think there's other energies we can receive back as well. That is, in business, one of the energies we tend to exchange quite a bit. Money itself is a very neutral resource. It is only good, bad. It only has a dark side or a shadow side or a light side based on what we put onto it, how we perceive it, what we make it mean, what we do with it. And that feels very important to say, because what's really important to me and so much a part of my mission and work is, yes, to help people make more money on their terms, but also to normalize the resource of money and talking about money. I think, yes, for men and women, but particularly for women, for so long, we weren't allowed to make our own money. And I think there's been so much of a stigma in society around talking about money and ownership around, for especially I think creatives, but I think for women as well, just around your value and the work you do. And this is a whole nother conversation for those of you who are more in the woo side. I think there's also things like, I talk about this as one of my friends does a lot of work around this, around things like the witch wound and things like that, which is not my necessarily zone of genius, but something we have conversations about. And so I think there's a lot of things that come up that feel like they're taboo or they should be shameful or they shouldn't be spoken about. And I think money falls into that category. I want to be such a stand for it's safe to talk about money. It's beautiful to make money for your work. It's beautiful to charge work and get that energy exchange for your work. And with every light thing, money's a neutral resource. With every positive, neutral, pretty much everything in our world, there's a shadow side to things. And I think that's just normal. A shadow side is not even a bad thing. But if we ignore the shadow side, if we demonize the shadow side, if we make the shadow side shameful, or I don't know, we want to hide it under the covers and not talk about it, that's when it gets a lot of grip and power over us. And I think that's when it can become something that has a negative impact over us as business owners. And so money, like anything, has a positive, a light side, it has a shadow side. And I put this in the email we sent, it's the Brene Brown quote. I have to pull this up because I don't want to butcher her quote. And let's see, where do I have it in here? I think I put her quote in this. I wrote this a couple weeks ago. Did I put her quote in this? Yes, it's our fear of the dark that casts our joy into the shadows. And I think that's why this conversation is so important. I think it is our fear of the dark. It is our fear of the shadow side. Money has a light and a shadow side, but it is our fear of that shadow side that has us avoid it. And that's what stifles our joy. That's what casts us into the shadows. And I think that's just such a great quote about what I want to talk about today. So I want to preface with all of that again, because I don't want to demonize money or talking about money or making more money. You make all the money you want in your business. That is a beautiful, glorious thing. I will continue to scale my business and I will continue to celebrate the income we make in our business. We celebrate that all the time. We talk about ownership and owning that in this space a lot. And I want to share more than one side to this. And so I'm going to share a little bit about the shadow side, the darker side I'm seeing coming up. And then I also want to share why I'm celebrating that lower income month. So with the darker side, it's a conversation I've had with my coach a few times recently over the past year. This is a conversation I've had with quite a few of my peers. And I say that because, I'm privy to some of these conversations because I'm in those spaces all day, every day. And I want to bring them to you because sometimes I think we just see what's posted on social media. This is also a conversation I'm having with clients quite a bit. And this shadow dark side, it's really this, and I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it, but it is this belief and this sort of trap. And I imagine some of you probably think it's like working too much or spending too much in the lifestyle trap. And while that can be a thing, I don't think in our space that's as much of the trap, but I think it's more this belief and this trap that you're always meant to be making more money and to be deemed as a good business owner and marketable and as someone who is hireable and as someone who is continuing to grow, you always need to be making more money. And some of the dark side that I've noticed is this it's almost like, so I'll use this is the best example, this is a good example here, and then I can use myself as well. My girlfriend gave me permission to share this because we were talking about this. I won't share her name, but she said it was okay for me to disclose this. We were having a private conversation about her business, and she runs a launch model, and she's been in her industry for a very long time. She's excellent at what she does. She knows she's excellent at what she does, and in general, her launches tend to double year after year. That is phenomenal. And this year she's in a place in her life where she wants to get pregnant. She wants to slow down a little bit. And we were having this conversation, and she's also in a place financially with her business where she's fine. She doesn't need to make more money. Her base needs are met. Like, she's abundant, she's in overflow. And there was so much stress coming up for her around this pressure to, even though she wants to slow down and she wants to have this baby, this pressure to have this launch be the same, but really to double, because otherwise what will people think? And I don't even think it was a conscious what will people think, because this is someone who's very conscious and has done a lot of work around this, but I think that is some of the dark side and the pressure that comes in our space, because I think our space, intentionally, unintentionally, has started to send this message that, again, you're only successful if you're always increasing your income, if your income number is always going up. And I know for me, it was really interesting, and this is not the whole celebration and reason for celebrating my lowest income month, but this is where I think some of the shadow side really became more apparent and aware to me. Last month, I think the fun thing is I'm sitting in a place now where I have the hindsight of knowing exactly what last year did, and we did add $132K cash or revenue, additional income to our previous year. And within that, every month was not the same. Every month did not increase one month after the other. And so while we had big months, we had some months that weren't as big. And my lowest income month was we still had a multi-5-figure month. It was still a great month, but in contrast, percentage-wise, it was significantly lower. And I remember it was the first time it had, dipped. And I can share all the reasons if people are interested. For various reasons, it made a lot of sense when this happened last year. And again, it's easy for me to share this with you now, because now I also know. And we scaled by 132K last year. But for context, at the moment when I had my lowest income month, I did not know that's what our year would end up to be. So I say that because, yes, now I have that context. At that time, I did not have that context. And I remember this was a conversation I had with my coach. It was just this really interesting awareness of, had you asked me before then if I felt like this dark side of money and this pressure to always have my income months increase and to be able to share that, and to almost like this, I think there's this underlying pressure that is insidious and that doesn't even seem conscious of, unless you're making more money, you can't prove you're good at what you do. Had someone asked me if that was the case for me, I'm pretty sure I would have told you, no, absolutely not. I'm good, I feel abundant, I feel fine, I don't feel that pressure at all. But part of the reason was I was in I think we go through phases in business where we are, we have contractions and expansions. And for me, the way it goes in my business is expansions, especially with the revenue share model and the way I work, they tend to flow a few months in a row. And then there's a contraction. And I have the gift of being in business for years, so I can see this over the years. While the whole trajectory has gone up and we've scaled, there are expansions, contractions, expansions, contractions. It kind of ebbs and flows, but it overall goes up. So I know this, but I think because last year was just bigger expansions and contractions than I've experienced in the past, this was the first time where I was like, wow, holy shit. I absolutely feel this fear and this worry that this means I am bad at what I do, and that I can no longer prove I'm great at what I do, or something like that. And it was just this really interesting aha. And this is the dark side to making more money in our space. I don't even think it's the lifestyle trap. I don't think it's I think that happens for some people. I don't think it's I think there's so many things we think can come up around money, but I think in our space in particular, one of the traps is this, it's insidious, and it sneaks in, and this feeling I need to always be making more money to prove I'm good at what I do, or I can no longer prove I am, or I'll no longer be able to book clients, or whatever the narrative might be there. And one of my girlfriends, I wish I could claim credit for having this analogy. This is one of my girlfriends gave this analogy, and I'm saying this because you're hearing me mention multiple people here. I've had this conversation with so many people, which is why I know this is widespread in our industry. It's not just me or 3 people. I've had this conversation with I don't know, 20 people recently. So I say that just to normalize this for anyone who's going through this, who is having any of these thoughts come up. But she said it feels sort of like the way, so I don't know, I don't read a lot of, I don't know if fashion magazines are still a thing, but when I was in college, fashion, like magazines were a thing, and like airbrushing was such a thing. And there was, whether you realized it or not, if you were consuming magazines and watching like any kind of advertising that was kind of retouched and filtered, even if you had a healthy body image, even if you were someone who's like, oh my gosh, I don't think like I need to be super skinny or super like no pores and perfect skin and whatever the thing is that I'm seeing in magazines, even if you were someone with a super, super healthy self-image and self-love, if you're constantly being seen airbrushed images over and over and over again, it's insidious and it seeps in. And there's a certain point where there's a part you find yourself looking in the mirror and you're like, well, why don't I look like this is what I'm supposed to look like. I'm supposed to look a different way. And I think that is such a great analogy and example of, I think, what's happening to the dark side of money and making more money in our space. Even if you have the healthiest mindset around this and you know your worth is not tied to making money and you know that you have nothing to prove, we're in a space where this is just being so perpetuated that it's sort of like seeing air retouched images over and over and over again. At a certain point, you just start to think that is what normal looks like. You forget that they're filtered and air touch or retouched. And I think it's kind of the same thing with money, because in marketing, for the most part, and this again, it's not even bad. I don't think it's bad that people are bragging on big income wins or talking about that, as long as they're being honest. I think that's a beautiful thing, and I think it makes sense for marketing. But because marketing is sort of the retouched highlights, that's what we're speaking to and selling to. Usually most people aren't going to say, and I'm celebrating my lowest income month, right? It is sort of like we are, and this is what's in our feeds all day long, especially the last 2 years in COVID, right? We're on social media that much more. We are just being fed sort of airbrushed numbers, and I think it feeds this message that kind of seeps in. Again, even for those of you with like the healthiest mindset of, I need to always be making more. My income should always be increasing. If I'm a good business owner, if I'm good at what I do, if I'm going to keep booking clients, if I'm going to have a good launch, I need to always be making more. And aside from this being false and harmful to your business self-esteem and your self-worth and thinking we have to prove, the crazy thing about this is it's also just not how business works. And I think we've talked about this in this group before, but I'm going to say it again. And I said it earlier in this live stream, business is not a straight line. If you look at any industry, I invest in the stock market. So if I go look at my stocks and I go look at them every single day, I would make myself crazy because they go up and down. Even over the course of the week, the stocks go up and down. Over the course of the month, over the course of the year, they go up and down. If I look at my investment portfolio, it goes up and down. Sometimes it goes really down because of what the stock market is doing. And that would literally make me crazy if I just looked at like one piece of that, as opposed to seeing it's a piece of the whole, and that's super normal, but is the overall trajectory going up? And I say that because we forget that in our space, and we get fed the message, every month should be more, every month should be more. And this gets to be really dangerous because then this also leads into things like people getting stuck into burnout, or people who are wanting to have very different business goals, for example, slowing down or making space for a family or a business model that feels in alignment, and feeling this unhealthy contraction. I think there are healthy contractions before an expansion, but I think we can also contract and really end up choosing things. Again, I think this is very unconscious. I don't think people are doing this consciously, or all the people I know are very, very intentional, but I think it's just this thing of like, oh, I should also, like, I need to be doing these things over here that don't even feel in alignment, that don't feel good, because I need to keep making more money, because that's what I need to do. And it becomes this, I call them golden handcuffs, not golden handcuffs in the way of if you keep spending money to increase your lifestyle and upgrade your lifestyle, that can become a certain kind of golden handcuff. I think people can get golden handcuffs where they're trapped by money because they always need it to keep up with their lifestyle. But I think this is a very different kind of golden handcuff. And I think it's so sneaky because if you're a high achiever and if you're a business owner, it's sort of like, well, but I'm doing the right things, right? I'm being really goal oriented. But when it's coming from this place of, but then I feel like I'm not good enough, or then I feel like my business isn't safe, or I'm behind the scenes worrying about something I'm going to launch, or wanting to take a break so that I can have a baby, or whatever the thing is, that can be very, very harmful to your personal well-being. Let me know if this is resonating. I have a lot more I want to say on this, but I need a sip of water. So business is not a straight line. Income is not a straight line. It's also pretty much every expansion we have, there's a contraction before this. And so we have contractions before expansions, and we often have contractions after expansions. Like, that is a very normal thing. And I kind of think of it as like, I can't even make like the visual in my brain, but it's sort of like expansions, contractions. And like, this is just like, it's almost like a floaty air thing that up levels us. But I know, again, I have the data of years in business. I know historically how my business goes, and how my nervous system and energetics go. And I think the contractions are smaller than they used to be. Like, I know usually if I'm going to have a really big up level, that is going to be preceded by a contraction. And I say this again, this is one of the reasons I celebrate my lowest income month of last year. I have so much I want to say here, so I'm like trying to organize my thoughts. I want to go back to the dark side of money, but while we're on this track. But one of the reasons for that is I know, and I can also see looking back, that a lower income month, and again, it feels so important to say, like, part of the reason I also celebrate this is my lowest income month was still a multi-figure month, and my business, that's such evidence that this business is so sustainable and so supportive and so profitable, and I'm so blessed. I mean, I'm very, very blessed, and we live in overflow. Quite honestly, that made zero difference to me in terms of even what I pay myself or what I pay team or anything like that. But I'm very aware of the finances and what the business is bringing in. So I think that's even helpful to see, where the difference I noticed was literally seeing a number on the paper and what that did to my brain versus how that actually impacted my life or even the business on a monetary level. But one of the celebrations is I can also, on this side of it, see that contraction is literally what preceded an up level for me. And I think it's so important to say that and speak to that, because I think part of what happens when we're in a contraction or we're having a lower month is it's very easy, especially when we're in that trap of business should always be making more money. Every month should be bigger than the last, or I'm doing something wrong. I need to make more money so that I can prove to everyone I'm great at what I do. When we're in that mind trap, which again, super, super normal. Pretty much everyone I've been talking to about this behind the scenes, this is coming up for them. So like, welcome to be normal if that's coming up for you. But the challenge with this is it's actually the opposite of what's true. And so if we know a contraction is it's sort of like what's setting you up for the up level. I know for me, a lot of times it is certain things being cleared out to make way for something new. If we don't know that and you're in a contraction and your brain is telling you, need to make more every month, you're doing something wrong, freak out, worry, feel bad about yourself, feel shameful. And we're doing kind of what the Brene Brown quote says, which is kind of like leaving that in the shadow. We don't want to talk about it. People might think we suck, whatever the narrative is. It's really easy to also start creating problems in your business that don't exist, and to start wanting to fix things that don't need to be fixed, and to actually create a problem. And so what can be a contraction that precedes an expansion and precedes an up level, because of this dark side of making more money, because of, I think, the airbrushed filters we're seeing around money in our space, something that is actually very positive and very healthy for your business and very normal for your business can have the smartest, most mindset-aligned human get into their business and want to tinker with things and want to fuck with things and actually create a actual problem. And then what's so crazy about that is then your brain's like, see, I told you need to worry. Good thing you worried. Good thing you found that thing and fixed it, because look, it could have been so much worse than it actually is, when in reality, there was nothing wrong. That was completely normal. That's the contraction that precedes the expansion and up level, and a problem has just been created. This is when we've all seen this, right? It's the business owner, or maybe you've done this, and no, absolutely zero shame. I think just recognizing where this is coming from. But this is where suddenly like someone wants to like create a brand new offer that makes no sense at all because they're in that contraction, or they want to raise their rates out of nowhere, or they, I don't know, want to change their whole marketing strategy out of nowhere. I'm sure we've all seen this or experienced this when someone is in a contraction, when there's absolutely nothing wrong. And so I say this and celebrate this because one of the reasons I celebrate my lowest income month of last year is that lower income month, again, not only is it evidence of how sustainable this business is and how, grateful I am for that and for, how high or low income month can be. And I was saying to my coach, and I have to remind myself, Kim 6 years ago, wouldn't have even thought that lowest income month was something that was possible. And I want to celebrate that because I think it's also so easy to forget those kinds of things and just to give ourselves a hard time. But I want to celebrate that as well because it was literally two things happened. One, it was the month that released the golden handcuffs, and we'll go back to talking about that, but it's also what set me up for an expansion and an up level. And that month in particular, and I think the only reason I'm so aware of this month is it was just a larger contraction than I'd had in a while. And so I did have a moment of panic and was grateful for my coach where my brain wanted to spin out where I'm like, oh my God, did I break my business? And I say that again just to normalize that. I think I'm just much faster at catching these things now and reaching out for support and realizing, okay, there's no problem here at all. So I'm so grateful for seeing that. But again, I can also really see that month in particular. I remember I almost had a love affair with my business, falling back in love with my business because suddenly the golden handcuffs, the what we're talking about here in terms of this equation that must make more money every month or you're not good enough. And this narrative I hadn't even realized I was creating in terms of I'm only a good coach, or people are only going to think I'm a good coach if I'm making more and more money. It suddenly got released. It was the best thing that happened to me. And I know that sounds so crazy, but I remember talking with my coach about this and I was like, that was literally the best thing that happened to me because it was almost like I'm free now. And I realized I had some of probably my best coaching calls that month, and it just clicked for me where money is separate from your business. It's also part of your business, but in terms of, money is separate from your ability as a business owner, your ability in whatever it is you do in your craft. And I think it was such a gift to really have that evidence and see, wow, not only is my business sustainable and safe and absolutely okay, and what a gift. And it also was such a reminder of oh my gosh, what a gift to see this and be able to re-fall in love with my work. I think I had this really, I call it a love affair. I was telling Eric every day, I'm I love my work so much. I love my clients. I love my calls because I think those golden handcuffs that I didn't even realize I was wearing had been removed. Whereas before, and again, I legitimately don't think I would have had the awareness that this was a subconscious tape playing before. I think there had been a little bit of must keep making more, or you're not good enough, must keep making more, or people will think you're not great at what you do. And it's so interesting because I can see this in clients and I know what a slippery slope that is rationally, because there's always going to be someone making more money in our space, just like there's always going to be someone more successful, whatever space we're in. And yet that month it was just this light bulb of oh, but that's always and I'm just as good now as I was yesterday when I had a bigger income month, and I'm just as good today as I will be next month when we pop or this up levels again. It was actually really beautiful to be in the experience and witness of that and see how separate those two things are. Let me know if this is making sense, because this is, I think, if I could give everyone one thing, it's this piece where it's seeing that, yes, make more money, that's a beautiful thing. But when you can see making more money has nothing to do with how good you are at what you do, and has nothing to do with your safety or your sustainability or the success of your business. It's very, very freeing in that way, and you can just see them as two separate things. And then making money honestly becomes so much more fun, because then it is more just about well, what am I going to do with more money? What fun things, how is this a resource I can leverage, as opposed to I need this to keep up, or I need this to prove I'm good enough, or I need this to tell myself we're safe and okay because we keep making more. It's, I think, a very fun energy to sit in, but also very freeing. Again, let me know if this is making sense. I also realized we're 32 minutes in. I did not even say this. We are giving away a free coaching session. If you comment now, if you're live, I know we had some people live earlier. If you comment on the replay as well, we'll pick a winner on Friday. So we'll see if you comment on the replay as well, because I completely forgot until just now. But we are giving away a free one-on-one session because I really want to encourage everyone to feel welcome to have a conversation around this and to open this conversation up a little bit more. So I'm just seeing my note on that. So feel free to comment if you want to win that free session. And everyone who watched earlier, we'll make sure we count those as well. Hi, Marie, nice to have you here and nice to see you. Let me know as well if you have questions as we're talking through this. And if there's anything I can share, because I think I'm so aware of this because I have these conversations, I realize there might be pieces here that you might have a question around, or you might want insight. I'm happy to be an open book around any of this. So where were we talking about before? And so I think that one of the biggest gifts there, that's the piece we were talking about, is really seeing that distinction and that difference and being able to separate that out. And I think that's where you can take the golden handcuffs off and see, like, yes, it is okay to want to make more money, but when it just becomes because it's fun to make more money, or you want to have more resources, or because you want to invest more, you want to scale your business because you want to impact more lives, or because you want to invest in your business more, because you want those resources for your personal life, that's such a beautiful energy. And I think that's when it actually becomes very fun. And then it's almost like the game of business versus I need to have this to insert whatever that personal, like, to feel, we'll go back to the analogy we had of kind of like the airbrushed filtered images, to feel like because this is what I think a body is supposed to look like to be beautiful. I think because when we're trying to make money, or we think we always have to make more because we think that's what money is supposed to look like to be wealthy or successful or to be enough, that's when we get into such a trap. And that's also when I think we end up making really, really poor decisions in business that are out of alignment and wake up. I've had this with multiple clients where people hire me and they've actually created successful businesses that they feel completely trapped to because they feel this pressure that it needs to keep growing. And now there's a engine, I call it a monster to feed only when it's out of alignment, but there's a machine to feed that they don't even want to be in, but there's such a pressure to keep that going. And so I think the more you can create that awareness and see money's a beautiful, beautiful thing, but stay out of that trap, that dark side, and be aware of that dark side, shine a light on that shadow side, the more that can keep you out of those handcuffs so that you can see you get to do your work, you get to create success on your terms, you get to create abundance and enoughness, and then anything outside of that, you get to do that because that feels good, not because you have to, not because you have to prove anything. And then when you see those numbers ebb and flow, you can also see that is a normal thing in business. That is how business works. For those of you who don't invest in the stock market, I invite you to just go look at some of the numbers there for a few days, just so you can, don't take financial advice from me, don't necessarily go invest, but just so you can see big companies and how their numbers ebb and flow and just how normal that is. And then if you were to go look at some big companies that have done well over the last decade, if you were to look at their numbers, you would see they have a lower month, that every one of their bigger peaks in their, if you look at their overall stock market number. This is me doing the numbers, y'all. But if you were to look at all of that, you would see all of their big peaks are preceded by a valley. And that is normal. But again, I keep saying this and I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot here, but it feels so important to say. That's because those valleys, those contractions are usually not only what precede a peak and what allow for a peak, otherwise it would be a straight line, right? We wouldn't even be able to see those peaks and notice them. But it's often also literally what allows for that peak to happen. And so this will be the last piece we'll talk about. We were kind of touching on this earlier. What I have now come to see, and why, again, I celebrate lower income months, and I really do, y'all. Like, I write gratitude. When I had this month last month, I had a hiccup. I needed some support around that. I saw all these gifts from that. It helped me see and have these conversations with people and to see how normal this is in our space and how much pressure I think people are overall putting on themselves to keep making more. But I also then got back into so much freaking gratitude, and it really was a love affair in my business, and seeing that well, two things here. Seeing one of the things with our gratitude is I just really believe and really saw, I was like, oh, well, this is really fun because this means a big up level is coming and I can't wait to see what it is, because I just so know now. And I'm sharing this with you because, again, I have data from years in business. I can look back to some of my bigger income months 2 years ago, right? And see like what that looked like before. I think it just stood out to me last year so much more because we've just grown and scaled, so the numbers just feel a little different. I'm also, I think, I have more team members that I'm responsible for paying, so I think I'm just that much more aware of it. But the ebbs and flows are the same that way, and the overall trajectory goes up. But I actually sit in this place of like, well, this is really fun. Let me celebrate this, because I'm just going to celebrate that expansion in advance. And I'm going to enjoy how safe it is in my business, as opposed to I'm going to spin out and think there's a problem and try to figure out, what do we need to fix? What do we need to tweak? Is my strategy wrong? Is my email sequence wrong? Do clients not want to pay me? Whatever the like noise that can come in. And so I want to offer that to you. If you're noticing that in your business, yes, if there's legitimately, I'm not discounting strategy or not discounting paying attention when there are legitimate challenges in your business, but if your business is overall working and you've been making money and you have a lower income month, I really want to invite you to see that as, you're not wrong, you're not bad. What if this is the contraction before the expansion? Instead of looking for, oh my gosh, something's broken, what the fuck do I need to fix? And then the other big piece here, we were touching on this, but just to put a bow on that is, and really starting to see, wait a second, if I can feel great about my work, if I can love my business, if I can see I'm great at what I do when it isn't the higher income month, you're no longer attached to, I need money to feel good about myself. I need the airbrushed image to feel good about my body, right? It's kind of that same analogy there. And that is, I think, one of the most freeing gifts you can give yourself in business. I remember saying this to my coach. It was sort of like this great awareness for me of, oh, I'm a great coach and I keep getting better and better, not because we keep scaling or because we keep making money. It's because I keep showing up and coaching. It's because I keep practicing my craft. I keep sharpening my saw. Just like when I was acting, I wasn't necessarily a better actress when I booked work or a worse actress when I was auditioning. And it wasn't like, I don't know, if I booked a commercial that paid me more residuals, suddenly that made me a better actress. That just meant I was making more money at that time, which was super fun and nice to have. But what made me a better actress and what helped me grow and scale my craft as an actress was just to act more, was to go to class, was to go to auditions, was to be in the craft of acting. It's the same thing for me as a coach and as a business owner. I am a better coach today, and I will be a better coach 6 months from now, and I'm a better coach today than I was a year ago, not because we added 132K of revenue on, but because I've shown up every day for another year and practiced my craft. And so I offer the same thing to you because I think that's just the other piece of the dark side of money there. We get this equation, we like collapse things in such a funny way in this space sometimes. And again, I do think there's some really beautiful things about that. I love that we talk about money, but I think sometimes just really mixed messages get put out there. And I think then people who are really, really great at their craft feel like they're, I don't know, not as good because they don't have the income to match, or someone who doesn't want as big of a business, right? I don't want to have a launch model. I don't want to sell courses. There are lots of things I don't want to do in my business because frankly, that doesn't feel in alignment for me for various reasons, which means my income and our scaling is going to look a little different than someone else's business. And I know because I hear this from clients as well, if you are someone like that, I think that's then very easy to think, well, then that means I'm not as good as what I do, or people won't want to buy from me, or they won't think I'm as good at my craft. And I just want to keep coming back to that's just not what makes anyone good at their craft. Just like it's also not wrong if you're someone who wants to sell, who have a different model, or who is on a streak where you've been making more income every month. That's also not wrong. And that's why I want to be so mindful here where we're not demonizing the light side of making more money either, because that is a beautiful thing. I just want to shine a light on the shadow side that I think comes up in our space. All right, just checking my notes because I don't always do this, but today, this was one of those ones where, when you're like, I have so much to say about something, and I just wrote myself a novel. But it's not actually very helpful when you want to go live, because usually I just riff on the bullet points. So I just want to see here if there's anything that jumps out, because novels are a little harder to see. There is one more thing I wanted to share. So last thing here we'll share. So the thing I've really come to, and something I find really helpful, and ironically, I think this actually helps you make more money, and conversation I was having with, I'm in a paid mastermind and a peer mastermind. In a peer mastermind I'm in, we were talking about this year and our goals, and we were really talking about this idea of having business goals that aren't just about the income and revenue. And I absolutely have a revenue goal for this year in business, but I also have some really important business goals in terms of what I want for my business. For example, what I want for my team, what I want for the back end of my business, what I want for the way, we're running things behind the scenes that will absolutely impact our revenue and income, but they might not this month or next month. And it might even mean, we're pulling back in certain areas. And I share that because I've really come to a place, and I challenge my clients around this a lot as well. Like, yes, having those revenue goals, absolutely. I literally talk about, I want to help people make more money on their terms, but also having goals in your business that aren't just about the money, because those will help you make money. But I think it also helps your brain focus on some of the things that actually matter in your business a little bit more. And I want to be mindful here. I don't want to negate the importance of making money, and that your business needs money to run so that you can invest back into it and pay a team and pay for support and pay yourself so you can pay for your life expenses. I'm talking about once you're at a sustainable level and your bases are being met. So I'm not negating the very real aspect and the practical aspects of money, but I think also looking at your business and looking at what some of those goals are. And I say this because I think, again, in our space, I think this is the dark side of making more money sometimes in our space. Is I think sometimes the message is just, you always need to be making more money, and that should be the goal, and almost like making more money at the expense of everything else. And I think that's also when people wake up and they're like, oh my gosh, I made more money and the back end of my business is a hot mess, or I have a business model I fucking hate, or I have a business I want to burn down, but now I feel kind of trapped by this, or insert the thing. And I think there's something to being said, yes, absolutely. I plan on scaling this year, but I'm also very okay with us making exactly the same amount of money as last year, or even making less if we need to, so we can meet some of these other business goals that are really important to me for the health of this business, because I'm not gonna be here this year and then gone next year. I plan on being around for a long fucking time. And so I'm okay with that. If that means then that's our contraction, so that next year and the year after and the year after, we can scale exponentially more. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen, but I share that just as an example here, just to have a very candid conversation. I'm also so okay with that. Again, because I know if we do those things and we focus on those goals and we focus on the things that are important to me in the business and kind of the structure, that's also what allows us to make more money. And it allows us to make more money from a place that feels very sustainable and that feels really good, where I wake up and I have calls and I'm like, oh my gosh, pinch me. I love my fucking job. I love my clients. Like, I get paid to do this, as opposed to, oh my gosh, I made extra money this month, but like, stab me, like this feels horrible. I don't ever want that in my business. I don't ever want that for my clients. That's also really not fair to my clients if I ever feel that way. So I share that for everyone here. Absolutely. I want you to make more money, and I am so a proponent for that, but I would also invite you to look at what are some of those other goals you might have in your business. What's the way in which you want to make your money? And also maybe what are some goals for you around your craft that are separate from making money that you can really let yourself sit in. And so you can see that as equally important, or as something to focus on, so it doesn't just become about one goal, which is I always need to be making more and more and more. And just permission to see it. The way to making more and more and more, ironically, is also allowing for some of the things that might momentarily give you that contraction or dip in income. All right, I hope that was helpful for everyone. I hope this made sense for everyone. I know for me, this feels like a super important conversation. So I hope for whether you're watching now or on the replay that you got some insight here, and this gave some normalization and some permission around, yes, making more money, but also just seeing the ebbs and flows that will happen with income. Again, if you have a question, reflection, feel free to share it here. Feel free to use the Facebook group to have some of these conversations. And then if it's something you're like, I don't want to have to ask this question publicly, feel free to DM me or email me. I love getting those from y'all. Some of you to take me up on that, so that always feels really good. Before we go, I will give some reminders. We have a free masterclass next week, Words That Sell. You may or may not know I love mindset, but I also love strategy. And I think words and the way we use words, particularly in our marketing and in our content and our copy, is this beautiful blend of the mindset and the energetics as well as the strategy. So we are going to dive into both and workshop both the energy in the words you're using in your content and copy, as well as some of the practical strategy side of things. So you know how to craft words in your content, in your copy, in your messaging that compels people to listen and helps you book more clients, get more of those conversions. So that'll be super fun. I will drop a link for that. It's kimmarketsinger.com/words-that-sell. I believe that's it, but I'll drop the link for that. And we have a really fun bonus with power words. It's not a workbook this time. It's some really fun power words that we put together that you will get if you sign up for that. And then if you want any support around whether it's your copy or you want to talk through some of the business side, from the mindset piece of things to the strategy side of things, I will drop a link for a discovery call. Feel free to book a call and we can chat about how I can support you with the building, growing, and scaling of your business, and really building in a way that is sustainable, that supports you and what actually feels good to you in business, that helps you tune out the noise that, there's a lot of good noise in our space, but I think there can be a lot of noise that can also get insidious and creep in. Help you tune out that noise so you can really stay in your lane to build things, to make money on your terms. I love supporting clients with that. I would love to connect with you and we can chat about one of our opening spots we have coming up in the next few months. All right, I love you all so much. Thank you for sharing this conversation with me, and I will be back next week for our free training. Bye, y'all.